Well, good evening. My name is Val Fennell. I'm the Pennsylvania Director for Gun Owners of America, and welcome to our first episode of Candidate Cam, along with a number of other things that we will be trying and doing on live streaming. This will be a major feature, as we will interview and talk to GOA endorsed candidates throughout the state, whether in local races or statewide races, and possibly even Senate and congressional races, U.S. Senate congressional races. And for this evening, we have a special guest as our endorsed candidate is Mr. Brian Kerstetter. He's an attorney, and he is the endorsed candidate for the 17th Judicial District for the Court of Common Pleas for judge. And that encompasses both Union and Snyder Counties, right?
That's correct.
That's right. Okay. So Union and Snyder County, 17th Judicial District is combined. And so I just wanted to, and you can make your comments below and ask any questions that you might have as a viewer, and we'll put them up on the screen for you to, and then we'll answer them as they come in. But first, Mr. Kerstetter, I'd just like you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Certainly, Dr. Fennell. Thank you. Honored to be here this evening. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. As you indicated, my name is Brian Kerstetter, 40, almost 8 years old. Graduated from Lewisburg Area High School, 1992. I have a criminal justice degree from King's College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania that I obtained in 1996. I got my Juris Doctor degree, which is the law degree from Ohio Northern University, which is located in Ada, Ohio, in 1999. I've been practicing law ever since. Returned to the area, Lewisburg, after graduating from law school in 1999, and immediately opened my own practice from the grassroots. And in that practice, I've done virtually everything that a local attorney would find themselves doing in central Pennsylvania. I do a lot of family law cases, divorce, custody, support. I help people write wills, powers of attorney, living wills. I administer estates for individuals who have died. I've helped just a ton of people in buying and selling real estate in central Pennsylvania. I'm a title agent for Conestoga Title Insurance Company, so I can offer title insurance for my clients. I've done bankruptcies for individuals, both corporate and individual. I'm the attorney for both the Union and Snyder County domestic relations offices and have been for the last 20 years. As you're aware, I'm the solicitor for several local townships, municipal authorities, zoning hearing boards, and I've been doing that work since at least 2001. So I've surpassed the 20-year mark on that. I am counsel to and a board member of Susquehanna Valley Law Enforcement Camp Cadet, which is a paramilitary type program for youth in the area to obtain to get a flavor for what the law enforcement career consists of. And it focuses on self-esteem, discipline, physical activity, things of that sort. I was actually one of the founding board members of Camp Cadet when it was started by Trooper Matt Burrows. I think that was back in 2004, and that's still going strong today. I'm the attorney for the Buffalo Valley Regional Police Commission. I actually just came here from that meeting that we had this evening. I've represented numerous businesses throughout Pennsylvania, both near to my hometown and all throughout the state. Somehow I got hired as the attorney for the Pennsylvania Towing Association. I've been a guardian ad litem representing the interests of children in court proceedings. I've been a custody conference officer. I've taught paralegal courses at the McCann School of Business in Sunbury. I did that for approximately 5 to 6 years. So that's a little bit about what I've done in private practice. In terms of government service, when I returned from law school, a couple months after I opened my practice, I was hired as an assistant public defender over in Snyder County. Donna Nasser was the chief public defender at that time, and she hired me as her first assistant. I did that job for approximately a year and a half when I was offered a position as the first assistant district attorney. Curiously enough, the district attorney at that time was Michael Shawley. He's now a judge of the Court of Common Pleas in the 17th Judicial District. Even more curious is the fact that Michael Hudak, who is the president judge in Snyder and Union County, and the one whose seat that I'm hoping to take due to his retirement at the end of the year, was the other assistant district attorney. So I always tell people that I felt like the meat in a judge sandwich working at the district attorney's office in Snyder County. Both of those two individuals, who I consider to be mentors of mine, worked their way up to the bench after having careers that were similar to mine in terms of areas of practice and things like that they had been involved in. So I did the district attorney thing for quite a number of years. I took a little break from that in about 2006, about 4 years. Realized at that point I couldn't get the DA work out of my blood. I enjoy working with police officers. I was raised by a police officer. My father was a police officer in my hometown for 28 years, I believe it was. My mother is a registered nurse who worked at the Muncie Prison, which is an all-female state correctional institution. That's where I really cut my teeth as far as trial work goes. I cranked out over 100 criminal jury trials. Just had one a couple of weeks ago. I've also done a pile of civil trials, both in Union and Snyder County and throughout Pennsylvania. Just did a civil trial in Northampton County, a homicide case. Turned out to be a wrongful death case, and was able to secure a pretty significant multi-million-dollar verdict in that particular case. So I have a lot of experience in the areas that common pleas judges deal with on a regular basis. And that's why I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to hold this position. In terms of endorsements, most attorneys in both Union and Snyder County have endorsed my candidacy. I have the endorsement of the Pennsylvania State Troopers Association. I have the endorsement, obviously, the Gun Owners of America, and I appreciate that. I have the endorsement of the Union County District Attorney. So there's just a few of the endorsements that I've pooled as a result of my campaign. So that's just a little bit about my legal experience and my background. And I'm sorry to be long-winded about that.
No, that's fine. It's very, it's good that you shared that experience. So, I mean, maybe a lot of our listeners or viewers do not know what your experience is.
Sure.
But you mentioned our endorsement, and part of our endorsement when we survey candidates. We have judicial surveys. We have surveys for legislative candidates, for executive branch, for governor, depending on the office. So we sent you and also your opponent, a gun rights survey, and you returned that to us, and you answered a lot of questions on there. You did very well in answering them, and it's very specific to our Second Amendment rights. And in Pennsylvania, the equivalent, of course, is Article 1, Section 21 of our Pennsylvania Constitution. And so maybe you could tell our viewers like what your opinions are, or your beliefs are surrounding our Second Amendment rights, Article 1, Section 21. What does that mean to you?
Certainly. Let me preface any comment that I make, about that by saying that, the canons of judicial conduct, which are applicable to any candidate for judicial office, that I have to be careful about talking or answering any questions on how I might rule if any particular case were to come in front of me. So when I answer these types of questions, I'm going to be speaking in terms of my philosophy, and I'm absolutely 100% happy to do that. But as far as Article 1, Section 21 goes, I mean, as all I'm sure your viewers know, that has more succinct language clearly than the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution does. And it uses those words at the end, shall not be questioned. I've been an outdoorsman all my life, since the time I'm probably 5 years old, when my grandfather first took me fishing and along hunting with him. So my gun rights are extremely important to me. I own a ton of firearms, both for sporting and for personal protection. As I said on my survey, I'm honored to live in a commonwealth where that right has been clearly enumerated in our Constitution and contains that very, very, very specific language, the right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and of the state shall not be questioned. We don't have to get into that argument in Pennsylvania about whether or not the Second Amendment only applied to bearing arms for the purposes of having a well-regulated militia. I know that our good friend Justice Scalia took care of that back in 2008 in District of Columbia versus Heller, but Pennsylvania stamped that right a long time ago directly into its constitution. And it's extremely important, not only to me, but I think for all other responsible gun owners in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I mean, it's pretty difficult to argue a person's right in that regard when it says that right shall not even be so much as questioned. So again, extremely important.
And thank you for that. And part of our answer to our one of the questions we ask on our survey is your judicial philosophy. At the one end of the spectrum, there is the Constitution is a living document, and sort of the other end of the spectrum is there's the originalist or strict constructionist view of the Constitution. Where do you fall in your interpretation of constitutional law on that spectrum?
Well, I can't recall which end of the spectrum was which, whether 0 was the absolute strict constructionist or
10 was.
Yeah, 10 was. Okay. And I probably circled either a 9 or a 10.
Right.
Because I am not one who is interested in watching other judges engage in judicial activism, nor am I interested in engaging in judicial activism if I'm elected to the bench. My philosophy is quite simple. Be impartial, be firm but fair, be objective, be respectful, work hard, don't give out volume discounts to criminals when they're being sentenced, strictly interpret the federal and state constitutions, and since we're talking about Second Amendment sanctuary ordinances, strictly interpret those as well if those issues are ever to come before the court, and never, absolutely never legislate from the bench. It's amazing to me when I'm out on the campaign trail how I have to take some people back to their high school civics class and explain to them the difference between the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, and have conversations with them about how judges interpret laws. We're not engaged in the enforcement of laws, nor are we engaged in the creation of laws. A judge's job is to strictly interpret the law. So that's why I circled that 9 or 10 on your questionnaire, because I believe that document should be strictly construed.
Yes.
I think one of the other questions was a judge that I felt strongly about.
Yes.
In the United States Supreme Court. I mentioned Justice Scalia before, and I think his name is the one that I placed on my questionnaire. And I did that for more than just one reason. I did that, notwithstanding his decision in District of Columbia versus Heller. I also think that the guy had a similar judicial philosophy to mine. Most people know about his relationship with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was extraordinarily liberal when it came to her stance on issues in the Supreme Court. And those two could fight like cats and dogs. They could agree to disagree. They could maintain professionalism with one another and engage in debates that weren't necessarily disrespectful to the other's position on any given matter. And they could work toward some common ground. And I think that's important for a judicial candidate. I think it's important to recognize that there are going to be positions that differ from one another when people come into the courtroom, and be respectful of those individuals in their positions while still maintaining the intestinal fortitude, to say that, hey, these are our constitutional rights, and they are not going to be easily infringed upon.
Right. And it's you mentioned separation of powers. That's something that the city of Philadelphia doesn't understand in the Crawford case, where they tried to sue. They are suing the state for quote unquote failure to enact gun control, and they're expecting the courts to order the state to do that. I mean, or the legislature to do that. It's a clear violation of separation of powers, in my opinion. We had a question here. This is a good segue into our next topic. It says, would you be willing to help us push for constitutional carry as well as strengthening our state preemption law? Now, that's really a job for the legislature to decide whether we have constitutional carry or not. That's a bill in the legislature. But regarding the state preemption law, I think this is a good segue into, you have been very involved in and as a township solicitor for both Gregg and Limestone Townships, and two of our GOA activists there, Sean Waltman and Scott Henninger, were very involved in getting a Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance passed in those two townships. And they singled you out as one of the key allies. And because, to be honest with you, we've run into a lot of roadblocks with township solicitors and borough solicitors or county solicitors across the state. And they were like, well, you can't do this. The county or the municipality doesn't have authority. And but you took on a different perspective. So describe what your role was in those two townships in getting a Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance passed.
Certainly. I would love to sit here and take all the credit for making those ordinances happen. The reality is that we had good elected officials in both Gregg Township and in Limestone Township. We had gun people, quite frankly, on those boards. Mm-hmm. And when individuals like Scotty Henninger and Mr. Waltman showed up to the meetings to propose these Second Amendment sanctuary ordinances to them, those boards were very receptive to those arguments or to those positions. So it didn't take a whole lot for me to convince them that this was the right thing to do. We have federal law, we have state law, and we were able to give this added layer of protection, if you will, at the local level. And we could talk ad nauseum. We could fight about it forever and a day, whether or not, local municipalities have the authority to do this, and whether or not these resolutions or ordinances have any teeth to them. That's perhaps a question for another day. I assume there's going to be litigation regarding these matters down the road, but I will tell you exactly what I told those folks. It cannot hurt. And when we had that conversation, the next question became, are we going to do something as minimal as a resolution, or are we going to take this to the max and adopt the ordinances? And for those who don't know, a resolution is a formal expression of an opinion, of an intention, or of a decision of a governing body, while an ordinance, for lack of a better word, is a law created by a local municipality. And in my case, when we had that discussion with both Gregg Township and with Limestone Township, both of those municipalities, as you know, decided to go with the ordinance because it had more teeth, quite frankly, than just the resolution. I know that certain other municipalities in Union and Snyder Counties went the resolution route, which again is better than nothing when it comes to Second Amendment and Article 1, Section 21 rights. But fortunately, I was able to help convince. Again, I don't want to take too much credit for this because all the supervisors, but to aid them and to assist them in understanding the difference between a resolution and an ordinance. And they all felt very strongly that this should be done via the ordinance. So again, I appreciate the accolades for sure. My role was as a legal advisor, and the credit goes to the members of those particular boards. If we had some more elected officials at the local level who had the intestinal fortitude like those ladies and gentlemen did on those boards, we might not be in the position that we are with regard to gun rights in certain areas of Pennsylvania and throughout the country, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm. All right. Got a comment. Resolutions are a much stronger statement saying we won't deal with infringements. Actually, ordinances would be. Wouldn't you agree?
Correct. Correct. Again, resolutions are just respectful suggestions. Yes, I would say. Again, an ordinance is a law. A resolution is just an expression of an opinion or a statement of an intention by a governing body. The ordinance itself, again, has more teeth. When you're trying to remember the difference, an ordinance is a law. A resolution is not.
Right. And our opinion in this at Gun Owners of America is the supreme law of the land in Pennsylvania, of course, is our state constitution. And we have the federal constitution and the Bill of Rights. And the Second Amendment sanctuary ordinances does not regulate the lawful ownership, transfer, transportation of firearms. So it doesn't regulate those things. What it's doing is preventing enforcement of unconstitutional laws. And we believe that counties and municipalities that pass these are actually upholding the higher law. Each one of us. I was an officer of the United States. I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And every elected official in this country, in this state, takes a similar oath. And so what they're doing is upholding in our opinion, upholding their oath of office and saying, we are not going to enforce these unconstitutional laws within our jurisdiction. It has nothing to do with regulating firearms. And so people throw up this, preemption is violating the preemption law. And I believe we talked about this once before. In your opinion, does the SASO in Gregg and Limestone, as you advised them, would it violate the preemption law? What was your opinion?
Yeah, I don't believe that it would. And as you correctly point out, the Second Amendment sanctuary ordinances that we adopted made your point, the point that you just made, extraordinarily clear. We carved out at least 4 specific exceptions with regard to gun owners' rights. Just as an example, I pulled the ordinance before I came in. The protections provided to citizens by this ordinance do not apply to persons who are prohibited from possessing firearms under federal law or permanently prohibited from possessing under the Commonwealth's laws. It's not intended to prohibit or affect in any way the prosecution of any crime for which the use of or possession of a firearm is an aggravating factor. It doesn't permit or otherwise allow the possession of firearms in locations where possession of firearms is prohibited under federal law. And it doesn't prohibit individuals in Gregg Township from voluntarily participating in assisting, permitting, licensing, registration, or other processing of applications for licenses to carry firearms, et cetera. So the point that you make there is absolutely 100% well taken. The local ordinance is not meant to, nor can it preempt either state or federal law. That is a common misconception, I believe, when it comes to the enactment of Second Amendment sanctuary ordinances. So thank you for pointing that out.
No, you're welcome. We got another question that came in here from a viewer. I don't know if you'll be able to answer. We could take a stab. How would he handle a self-defense case if, let's say, someone attacked my family and I defended them with a firearm?
Yeah,
what
again,
are the principles involved there?
Yeah, I have to be careful about commenting, on how I might rule in any case that comes before me. Be aware of the castle doctrine in Pennsylvania. If I can take a minute and just go over that a little bit. Pennsylvania is a castle doctrine state, and castle talks about the duty to retreat from a dangerous situation if you have the ability to do so safely. Pennsylvania has decided that there is no duty to retreat in a dangerous situation before employing a deadly force. If deadly force is being threatened against you or being committed upon you, I should say attempted to be committed upon you, while in your home or within the curtilage of your home, which is the area immediately outside of your home. So unfortunately, Pennsylvania didn't have that right, at least in my opinion, a long time ago, and the duty to retreat while inside your home did apply. Thankfully, that issue was addressed by the court, and castle doctrine now applies. It's called the castle doctrine because of the belief that a person's home is his or her castle, and there therefore is no duty to retreat, even if it can be done so safely while inside of your home. I think in answer to the question that was just posed based upon the information that I've given up to this point. The person who asked the question might have a pretty good idea of how I might respond if confronted with that situation while in a courtroom. So again, I can't give any specific answer, but I think if you read between the lines, you know where I might stand.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. One of the bills in the legislature now on the pro-gun side is to actually include disparity of force within the Castle Doctrine, because that was left out. Could you imagine someone enters your home and they don't have a deadly weapon, but it's someone maybe 2 or 3 times the size of your wife, and she's home alone, and now there's disparity of force. So
Sure.
this is one of the things that we're trying to improve within the Castle Doctrine.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I was always taught that the David and Goliath scenario doesn't apply when it comes to self-defense. If you have the right to defend yourself, you have the right to defend yourself. It's that simple.
We had a viewer who says, good answer. Okay. Yeah. So, I have the link here below for your website, which is kerstetterforjudge.com.
You got it.
Could you tell us a little bit about your campaign? What are your goals and objectives? What are you looking to do within the next couple of months leading up to the general election?
Sure. So right now, I mean, it's all about meeting with members of the public. Union and Snyder County they're both pretty rural counties. There's a lot of square miles to get to between the two. Union and Snyder County is one of only, I think, 3 other areas in Pennsylvania where 2 counties make up the same judicial district. Montour, Columbia is another one. Sullivan, Wyoming, I believe, is the other. And the other one is out near the western part of PA. That one always escapes me. But because of that, there's a lot more area for a candidate to cover who's running for office in the 17th Judicial District. So the election is November 2nd. So we're below 2 months at this point to get our message out there to people. I've been knocking on a lot of doors lately. I will continue to do that until November the 2nd. I'm actually having a great time getting out there and meeting folks. As I said, I was born and raised here, but these areas look a lot different than they did when I was growing up. We've had a lot of people from outside of the area move in to our area, and I don't know near as many people now as I did quite a long time ago. So it's not a situation where I can just sit back and rest on my perceived experience or my family history with my mother and my father. I actually need to get out there and talk to the voters. Unfortunately, a lot of the voters out there aren't all that concerned about judicial elections for one reason or another, probably because those judges aren't making laws. And that's obviously a big concern for the voting public. But I submit to them that these are some of the most important elections that they can get themselves involved in. Voter turnout in the primary was, as always, really low. And I unfortunately anticipate it being low again in the fall. But common pleas judges in Pennsylvania, I mean, the common pleas court is where the vast majority of justice gets meted out. I've practiced before the appellate courts in Pennsylvania, all of them. I go in front of the Superior Court routinely. I've been in front of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on numerous occasions. Common pleas judges are elected for a 10-year term. And after that 10-year term, it's a retention vote.
Right.
And for those who aren't familiar with retention votes, it's a yes, no. Should the so-and-so judge be retained for an additional 10-year term? I don't want to suggest by any means it's like a Supreme Court justice where it's a lifetime appointment, but it might as well be, because there have only been 5, 6, perhaps 7 judges in Commonwealth of Pennsylvania history that have not been retained. And the salary for judges is pretty good. And over a 10-year term, the taxpayers are going to pay almost $2 million for their judge. And for somebody who's as young as me, who might end up doing 2 terms, you're talking about $4 million worth of taxpayer money. And frankly, the next judge is likely going to be there for as long as they want to be there. And for that kind of money, one would think that would motivate the voters to get out there and make sure that the right person for the job gets elected. So that's what we're trying to do at this point. I apologize for the long.
No, that's good. And maybe you could clarify something for us too. Now, because people do get confused about this. Certain offices in Pennsylvania are partisan. You have to register, and some of them you can cross-file. And so judge races are one of those, right?
That's correct.
So we are nonpartisan at GOA. We only care about a candidate's position and their voting record if they're a legislator on the Second Amendment. We endorse Republican candidates. We've endorsed Democratic candidates. We've endorsed Libertarian candidates.
Sure.
So in the general election, I believe you are on the ballot as a Democrat, correct?
You are absolutely correct. So you've endorsed the lifetime registered Republican who just so happened to win the Democratic nomination. So, and that's how it works. It works in judicial races. It works that way in races for magisterial district judge. It works that way in races for district attorney. You can cross-file. I'm extremely glad that I did, because had I not, I wouldn't be talking to you right now, about a race for the fall. So yeah, I mean, judicial races are supposed to be nonpartisan. We are supposed to be fair and impartial. And one would think that would apply to any judicial election. It might not stand to reason so much as to why a district attorney would be in that particular position. But for judicial candidates, one would think that would go without saying. We don't check voter registration at the entrance to the courtroom. I can't say that if you're somebody who disagrees with my views, that I'm simply not going to listen to your side of the case. I mean, that's just patently absurd. So we try and take politics out of things as judges. So it really didn't make any difference to me whether or not I won the Republican nomination or the Democratic nomination. Obviously, I'm in it to win it, and we'll see on November 2nd.
All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that, because we do get questions occasionally as like, well, why is GOA endorsing a Democrat, or why is GOA endorsing a Republican in a particular case? And so we've just got to clear that. In some races, you can cross file, and I believe school board is another one, correct? Yeah,
that's another one. You're correct.
Right. So school board, people can cross file. So, always look into the candidate's background. Are they really a Democrat or really a Republican? Did they cross file? Those things will kind of help you in your investigation. But we're kind of at our time.
Thank you for pointing that out. I mean, that's another thing. Be educated as a voter. Don't always accept, what might be construed as the logical candidate. Do your homework on those candidates and try and make the best decision for the future of whatever area it is that you live in.
Yes. We got another comment. It says good. Well, we're at the end of our time. I wanted to try to keep this to around a half an hour. Do you have any parting comments about your campaign, or anything you'd like to leave with us, your final thoughts?
I just absolutely appreciate the opportunity to come on your show, to be the guinea pig, if you will, for the first live stream broadcast for Gun Owners of America. I very much appreciate the endorsement. It meant a lot to me. It's actually gotten me a lot of traction in my campaign. I hope that the viewers have liked what it is I've had to say this evening. If they have any other questions about myself, my candidacy, or whatever, there's contact information on that link that you just posted. I'm available most times. I'm obviously not available when I'm in court, but emails, phone calls, I will happily take. I'd appreciate everyone's support and their vote on November 2nd.
Thank you very much for being with us tonight. And we'll have this podcast also up on our YouTube channel and we'll be posting it on the internet to other places.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. So long.